Okay. Hello everyone. Today we have a guest speaker here. He'll be talking about his journey in politics and what made him run for governor?
No.
House of
Representatives.
Oh, House of Representatives.
You're trying to give me a promotion.
So how many of you are interested in politics? Okay, so he'll just be talking about, everything that he has to do with politics, about the election that is next Tuesday. I know unless you're 18, you can't really vote, but and just everything that has gone on in his life since he was a kid up to now. So, Teddy Fikre.
Thank you first and foremost, Eden, for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life story, what made me decide to run for Congress. But I also want this to be conversational, so at some point, if you have questions or we just have a dialogue, don't hesitate to jump in. So a little bit about myself. My name is Teddy Fikre. I'm originally from Ethiopia. We arrived in America in 1983. Was born in 74, and we came here at the age of 8 to get away from a lot of repression that was taking place. In fact, this would have been the high school I would have attended had we not moved away from Alexandria, and we ended up moving to Woodbridge when I was, I want to say about 10 years old. So this school means a lot. It means a lot to me in terms of my history with Alexandria, because this was the first place that we moved to when we came to America. It also means a lot in terms of the history of the school. In fact, a lot of the reasons why I'm running for office, the message behind my campaign, could trace its roots in a lot of ways to what took place here in the 1970s. So let me tell you a little bit about my life story and what made me decide to run for office. I've always been politically engaged, especially in 2008, when Obama decided to announce for president. In fact, when he launched his campaign in Virginia, it was at T.C. Williams. He had an event here. And I remember attending that event with my nephews at that time and my niece, and just how much of a connection that I felt to the campaign. But there was something that I did not necessarily have the wisdom to understand at that time. Obama used to talk about it all the time, about the us versus them, how toxic it is to view politics or social issues through the lens of our differences. But unfortunately, that's pretty much what happens all the time with both political parties. I didn't realize that myself until about 6 years later. I went through 2 years of homelessness. So in a lot of ways, I've seen both the success, the blessing of America, and also the hardships of America. Before that, I attended, graduated from Woodbridge High School, went to George Mason, graduated in '98, have an MBA from Johns Hopkins, and had a pretty successful career as a defense consultant and as a business consultant. My position came to an end in 2014. About after a year, I decided to open up a business, made some bad business decisions, and shortly thereafter I became homeless. And those 2 years of my life really taught me a lot of lessons. As hard as it was, it also opened up my eyes into the deception of our political system here in America. Up until then, I used to see justice through the prism of our differences. I used to fight for racial justice. I used to bash Republican voters. I used to collectively blame the ills of the world at white people. 2 years of homelessness taught me that when it comes to hardships, to the pains that people go through, there is no difference. There is no boundary. We all have pains. And what I realized, seeing so many impoverished people of all races, of all differences, of all backgrounds, is that the root cause of a lot of the social ills in America is economic in nature. But the political system is kind of geared towards ensuring that we always pay attention and we fight and we bicker based on our differences. And so, I arrived at something that Fred Hampton realized in the 1960s, which is that if we want to make any advances and progress in America, we have to get beyond the differences. And he tried to actually unite poor whites and poor blacks, up until he was murdered. Same thing with Martin Luther King. At a certain point, he realized the fight for justice cannot be won unless all sides kind of combine together and come as one. Malcolm X realized it too. For a long time, he used to, he used to deploy a lot of fiery rhetoric, and he's known for some of the things he used to say that was very heated. But he went to Mecca, and he saw a sea of humanity praying together, and he realized at that exact time that the fight for justice requires our common humanity, and for us to get beyond our differences. So in that way, for me, I had my Mecca moment, if you want to call it that, at homeless shelters in South Carolina, in Colorado, in Iowa. It took hardship for me to realize just how much we all are interconnected. And we cannot, unless the pains of the least amongst us, quote unquote, the least amongst us, are kind of tied into the pains of the rest, we end up actually dividing ourselves. We end up fighting and bickering based on what sets us apart instead of realizing that we're in this together. And in a lot of ways, I noticed that there's a lot of people from Ethiopia and Eritrea in the crowd. So salam, by the way. If you pay attention to what's going on in Ethiopia too, I realized the connective nature of what's going on in Ethiopia is connected to what's going on here in America as well. When people think of tribalism, a lot of times we think about how Africa was essentially colonized. It's by fostering tribalism and getting people to fight each other based on ethnicity, religion. But this form of toxic tribalism is happening in America too. Except here the tribes are, whether it's race, gender, orientation, all these labels that are imposed upon us to make us see each other as foes. And we're not foes. The truth of it is, we're in this together. On a broader level, there really is no us versus them. It's not about the rich versus the poor. It's not about the black versus white. It's not about left versus right. All these dissections of humanity, what they do is prevent us from seeing just how much we have in common. And in a lot of ways, the deception of our political system is to actually get people who are powerless to fight other people who are powerless. This is not to deny that racism exists. The deep historical injustices that have happened in America are legitimate, and the pains that people feel and harbor in their hearts for generations. And this, pain and trauma, they transcend time and space. Generation after generation, they pass on unless there's a level of accountability, there's some type of reconciliation, and some level of ownership of it, it doesn't get resolved. So in that way, the pains of the past are still alive. That's why you have so many people in the inner cities and so many African Americans who are stuck in generational poverty. We have to come to terms with these things. But the deception of it is to take what happened in the past and collectively blame the quote-unquote other side. Because the truth of it is there's a lot of poor and suffering people who are white in the Appalachians. And unless we get to a place where Martin Luther King was trying to get to, where Fred Hampton was trying to get to, Bobby Kennedy was trying to get to, which is to show that, to show these two sides that their fates are intertwined. And the pains of a child in the inner cities, of a black child in Harlem or Atlanta, is tied in directly to the pains of a white child in the Appalachians and beyond. So for me, that's what is the underlying message of what compelled me to run. Because I realize our political system is essentially built on the foundation of making us see beyond our common humanity and blaming other people who are powerless. And we see this problem getting worse and worse every day. Since I've been here, I've never seen America so polarized, where we literally are in our defensive corners. We don't really talk to each other that much anymore. And we try to tackle injustice, not through kindness and empathy, but through rage and anger. You know, Martin Luther King said a long time ago that anger does not drive out anger, and neither does darkness drive out darkness. It's only love that can do that. It might sound a little cliche-ish, but love is the only way to overcome evil, to overcome injustice. Is through honoring our common humanity and realizing that a person who does not look like you, who does not think like you, is nonetheless in the same struggle as you. And until we get to that point, we're going to keep fighting each other. And we're going to keep, playing into the divides. Very few prosper in this paradigm. The rest of us are being ground into dust. And one of the things I really want to leave upon you, impress upon you, especially given your age, and this world puts a lot of burdens on you. We expect y'all to carry the torch way too soon and make you almost forget about your youth. What I would say is what your generation is doing is amazing. You have the energy, you have the vision, but I would just simply implore you not to fall into the division, to get beyond the us versus them and to overcome the social divides. But beyond that, guard your peace. We can spend a lot of time focusing on the ills of the world. There's many. But if there's world peace tomorrow and you lose your peace and happiness in the process, it will do you no good. In fact, you will never see world peace unless there's peace within you. So guard your peace and cherish the moments as you try to take on various issues. Don't forget to enjoy your moments at this exact moment. The time in high school, when you go to college, cherish those days too. Adulthood is right around the corner. For me too, I spent a lot of my youth wanting to hurry up and grow up. Adulthood is no joke sometimes. So just enjoy your youth and don't let the ills of the world infect your happiness and take that away from you. So all that being said, again, my name is Teddy Fikre. I'm running for Congress as an independent. I'm taking the long road, the hard road. A lot of times it's easier to either be a Democrat or Republican and then to take corporate money. But I'm not, in a lot of ways, I'm not even trying to be a politician. I truly want to be a public servant. The art of politics is to divide people, to pit one against the other, to demonize. That's not what I'm about. I've spent parts of my life doing that. It took hardship for me to realize that in this journey called life, we're all in this together. And only by honoring our common humanity can we get to a place where we can advance justice and make progress as a society. And this same message, for people that trace their ancestry here from Ethiopia or Eritrea, there's a lot of turmoil back in Ethiopia as well. The same message applies there too. It's not about ethnicity. It's not about what you call God or who you call God. At the end of the day, it's to honor our common humanity, and love is the supreme law. For me, as a person of faith, there's one thing that we're supposed to cherish about all things. That's supposed to be to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So to honor that, so that's my campaign in a nutshell. You can find out more about the campaign by going to Fikre. It's FIKRE, number 4VA.com. That's on the cards. And it's kind of symbolic. Fikre means Mount Lebanon Amharic. So when I first thought about running for office, I was kind of coming up with various slogans. So My Left for Virginia was kind of the unofficial slogan. So, we could fight injustice through this world, through anger and hatred. We won't make any progress on doing that. Or we could offer love. So my way of making a difference is to declare my love. So it's My Left for Virginia, Fikre for VA. And so with that said, if you have any questions, I'll gladly take those. But again, thank you for having me. This is a deep honor to come back to the school that I would have went to. So in a lot of ways, what I missed out on, at least I got a piece of it today. Thank you, everyone.
Guys, now is a great time for questions. Questions. I would love to hear questions. I know I have a few, but I want to hear from you guys.
Sure.
What college did you go to?
So I went to George Mason undergrad and Johns Hopkins for my MBA. Thank you.
Was there any hand over here? Don't be shy, guys. Any question?
Sure.
You talk a big lot, but what actions specifically need to be in place? So
Sure,
I'm not
sure.
trying to roast you or anything. but
Sure,
I'm
no,
saying,
roasted. No, that's how it's supposed to be.
What laws need to be passed? What actions? What protests? What needs to happen to make
Sure.
that change you're saying?
Sure. So in terms of policy, like for me, what we need to get beyond is the political stuff and actually address politics. Because politics in a way becomes a way to just keep people divided all the time. So the number one issue is economic in nature. When you have teachers who are paying more marginal taxes than billionaires, that speaks to a deeply immoral system. So we can fight about all these differences all we want to. Follow the money. You know, when your generation, actually the generation that came right slightly ahead of you, I guess, the people in their 20s and 30s, for the first time, they're gonna be doing worse off than their parents' generation. We're going backwards as a country. And this is what I mean about like the deception of politics. I guess it's to fight about all these other issues and forget about the one issue that impacts all of us. It's economic in nature. So one of the things I'm actually advocating is to make, under a certain threshold, to make federal taxes voluntary. And this is something that I saw firsthand when I was in Colorado. And they've actually done studies where when you give people the option of giving, and they feel as though that money is being put to good use, people that can pay overgive, and those who can't won't. So if not paying taxes is good enough for a billionaire, it's good for the rest of us as well. So that's part of it, is to alleviate the burdens, is to reorient America's economy away from Wall Street. I'm not saying abolish Wall Street, but there's no reason why all the favoritism is given towards Wall Street at the cost of Main Street. So it's to give better tax treatments to small business owners, to preserve the rights of workers, and to introduce more competition, right? And within the work or the employer model. So when currently, for example, if there's more competition, it's not just Amazon that's dominating the retail space, for example. Well, with more employers, you have more competition for workers, and that means that wages go up by derivative. So that's another one. And also for your generation going to college should not, y'all should not be seen as sources of profits. Education should not be a profit model. It should be nonprofit so that education becomes affordable, not something where you go to college and come out 6 figures in debt. And for people that have accumulated all kinds of debt, their debt should be forgiven. Again, if it's good enough for bankers who led this economy in 2008 and their debt was forgiven, it's good enough for students as well. So those are areas for me that when it comes to congressional action, it's focusing on economic policy. But beyond that, it's, at the end of the day, we could demand all these things from DC. We also have a lot to do with our actions. We keep wanting justice, but yet our decisions that we make takes us further away from it. If you spend your money locally and give money to small businesses and entrepreneurs who live here, that does a lot more than just doing protests without any action to correspond with it. So I hope I answered your question. And that was actually the question. Yes.
What did you what makes you work into this?
What made me decide to do this? So I've always been interested in politics, but it was mostly from the background. I was big time volunteer for the Obama campaign. I've been telling a lot of Ethiopians to get involved, to run for office for 12 years. But sometimes when life kind of, all of us in life, at some point or another, life kind of punches you in the stomach. At that moment, you have a chance to either get inspired or to be depressed. So I had a real honest conversation with myself, and I was like, why am I always encouraging other people to do this? Why am I not doing it myself? What I realized is that I believed in everyone except for myself. So it was just my way of saying, you know what, it's enough of giving advice. I'll do it myself. You know, all of us too. A lot of times we give advice all the time. We need to take that same advice for ourselves. So that's what compelled me to mind. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
What makes you different from other candidates?
You know, I think for me, what makes me different is the fact that I'm not only relatable. You know, I tell people all the time, I don't have to feel your pain. I live your reality. So obviously, I'm not homeless anymore. I was able to kind of leverage my background, my education, my experience, and I have a well-paying job. But yet still, you know, I drive Uber part-time to make ends meet. This is the new reality. We're earning 6 figures is not enough, to be honest with you. And more people are working 2 jobs. Inflation is going through the roof. And this is not me kind of trying to feed into the us versus them dynamic. But the truth of it is, when it comes to Congress, it's become a country club where over half of Congress people are millionaires. And the average pay of a congressman is net worth is over $1 million. So how does that, you know, Congress is supposed to represent us. But if someone does not resemble our life experiences, it's not about whether or not somebody shares my skin color or shares my thought. It's whether or not they also live my day-to-day experiences. And when there's such a disconnect between most candidates who are making all kinds of fortunes, raising all kinds of fortunes from corporations, and even though they pretend to be against the very same system that they're working to preserve, at the end of the day, they're part and parcel of the very thing that they're fighting against, or pretend to be fighting against. So for me, it's the fact that, you know, I live right here in this district. I'm working 2 jobs. You know, when I get out of here, I go pick up my son in the morning. After I drop him off at school, I do Uber. Then I go, you know, do my 9 to 5. So it's that level of relatability, right? You know, when things are being done in D.C., if I've already made a pledge that if I get elected, I'm going to continue Ubering for a reason. I don't want to be in that bubble. A lot of times politicians get elected and they go off, they live in a bubble apart from the very people that they're serving. And so I think that's what makes me different. It's just my life experiences, being able to know that the blessing of America in terms of the success story, going through the process of falling and rising back up. This is something that most people can relate to, and when you can relate to someone, they can represent you better. So that's why. Thank you for the question. Yes.
What's your goal, like, for when you're, like, older and, like, around your, like, 70s or, like, presidential age?
Right.
Like, do you, like, hope to reach a governor, president, Supreme Court? Like, what do you expect to get to?
So, you know, I don't foresee myself being a full-term politician all the time, you know? Even if I get elected, I've already signed a pledge not to run for more than 3 consecutive terms, or 3 terms. I think a lot of times when people become career politicians, it's hard for them to get into public service. Again, they kind of get stuck in a political bubble. So yeah, you know, God knows what the future holds. My main priority is my son. We'll see what happens after this election. It's been an experience. One of the things, by the way, for those of you who have thought about running for office, or even think of, you know, just have ideas about it, I highly encourage you. It's hard. I have to gather more than 1,000 signatures on my own. There's a lot of roadblocks placed ahead. But if you're able to overcome those things, you're able to meet a lot of people, and then you kind of, the more people that you talk to, the more you interact with people, you realize that there's really not any us versus them. People that are so apart from one another, when you talk to them for like 5-10 minutes, you find out how much we have in common. So it forces us out of our comfort level, and to talk to people that are of different socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds. At the end of the day, that's where you find our common humanity. So to answer your question, I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to do this again. I'm just kind of focused on where we're at today. I'll say one thing, I can't be president because I was not born here, so you can take that one off the table. Thank you for the question. Man. Yes?
How did you like get out of homelessness? Like, apparently you were there for like about 2 years.
Yeah.
So, like, what emotionally clicked for you to
Sure.
get out of that situation?
Excellent question. You know, I think part of sometimes when life kicks you, you could become your own worst enemy. Bitterness is a prison, right? So for the first year and a half, I was very bitter at life. Like various people that I was always there for, there was a level of, sometimes when people want to be around you when everything's okay. But when the chips fall, people that you thought would be there for you will not be there for you. And when that happens, don't take that as some type of a judgment about you as a person or to become bitter. The worst thing you could do in life is to become bitter. That's what I did for a year and a half. There was one specific episode where I was kind of very bitter, and that one day there was a couple of days in a row, people that I was washing my clothes and people would just throw it on the ground. So that just kept feeding into my bitterness. And one day I was expecting the same thing to happen. So I went there. Instead, they not only did they take my clothes out of the washer, they put it in the dryer, they folded it. It was just like a random act of kindness. And that just made me like pause for a second. It made me made me start being grateful. So what got me out of homelessness is gratitude and being grateful to God and being grateful for the small things. In life, when you're grateful for the small things, bigger things will come. When you only want bigger things and don't pay attention to the small things that you have, you could become a billionaire. You'll never be happy. So for me, it was just gratitude and being thankful. And that took me away from a life of like, why me? And instead started saying, why not me? So that was really the main thing, is gratitude about anything else.
Like this is like a very it's not on topic or something.
Sure, no, go ahead.
But like normally when I haven't met people that were born here, like adults right now. I haven't seen Ethiopians that have been born here from a young age and now they're adults.
Right.
And I was wondering, like, have you ever faced racism, like back then, like 19?
Oh yeah, even now. That's racism is omnipresent. You know.
I mean, like, I was saying mostly back then it was worse.
You don't know because you normalize it, but yeah, definitely. When I was, like for example, in high school, I'm not going to say the name, but I had one particular person that was very influential in my high school, and I was trying to get advice from her about going to college. And she was like, maybe college is not meant for you, like go to trade school instead, you know, and that level of like just not believing in me when I went in there hoping to be encouraged and for her to discourage, you know. Growing up, the amount of times we would be kind of singled out by cops in Woodbridge, you know. Even beyond that, just in terms of specific times where people that were accomplishing less than me throughout in my career would get advancements where I didn't. Stuff like that, of course, you experience it. But the thing I would say about this is, when it comes to racism, if we really want to address racism and make it to ameliorate its stranglehold in America, we can't do so by lecturing people. The most important thing we can do is address the economic nature of this injustice, right? The truth of it is, and this is happening in Ethiopia too, when people feel like they cannot do, fulfill their potential in life, they have less and less opportunities, they become more tribal. And so, as America becomes more and more, there's a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, racism is only going to keep increasing. So the way to address these things is not to point fingers, is to address the economic nature of these things, so that there's people feel that they're more productive in life. When people are productive in life, they have less time in their hands to be hateful. When people feel like they don't have the opportunity to fulfill their potential, they become more hateful. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go see.
What kind of student were you? Were you very studious when you were in high school, or were you not?
Yes, nah. I unfortunately, coming here as an immigrant, it was very hard for me to fit in.
How old were you when you came?
I was 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, so you're still young though.
Yeah. So I had a hard time fitting in, and I came here during the heart of the famine in 84, 83/84. So I was being teased a lot, and then we ended up moving to Woodbridge. There was people like me who were just free and far in between. So for a long time, I had a hard time fitting in. By the time I got to high school, I finally started fitting in, was to rebel and to skip class a lot. So I learned the long lessons. I learned to dumb myself down and wanted to fit in, to be accepted. So I didn't really start thriving until I got to college. Unfortunately, in high school, I was not a model student.
So what, for students here that might connect with you being an immigrant, we have students, even some students from Central America in here, or different countries as well, just being one of the most diverse schools, the biggest school in Virginia, like you were saying. I think there's a lot of history and power here when we leverage our different experiences, our different cultures and values, and the perspectives and experiences we have. When we really truly leverage that and understand we can learn from one another, there's a lot of power in that. Yeah. So what advice would you give them? Maybe they can't go out and vote. Some of them can't, right? Maybe they can't though. How can they get involved with politics, or how can they make an impact in those things that they see happening? Sometimes I think maybe we don't think we have something to offer. We don't think we can make a difference. So what advice do you give them?
Sure. Don't ever underestimate the power that you have. When Obama won in Iowa in 2008 or 2007 through 2008, it was because of the young generation. If it was not for the younger generation, he was going to high schools all the time. He realized there's a amplification that you have. You're like a megaphone in that way. You reach one person in high school, you reach a whole household. You reach a household, you reach a whole neighborhood. That's how you impact change. So you have a lot of power within your voice. Carry that out. Even if you're not necessarily voting right now, you know people that are able to. And people listen to you. You are the trendsetters. Use that for the greater good. And when it comes to our diversity, don't turn diversity into a weakness. Use it as a strength. And what I mean by that is, we don't have to get into this place of competing about who has the worst. Connect the struggles or the things that the stories that you have. Connect that to everyone else. And when you do that, you're able to then create change that can transcend our differences. I used to say this to immigrants all the time. Whether you're Amara or more Tigrayan, there's a connective nature to these things. And when you go out and tell that story to non-Ethiopians, do so in a way where a Mexican can identify with an Ethiopian. Someone from Israel can identify with an Ethiopian. It's the same way across here in America as well. You don't have to sit up here and say, I have it bad and you have it better. Say, this is what we're going through, and I acknowledge what you're going through as well, and together we can make a difference. And that's how you actually create a powerful movement that cannot be stopped.
What can we do as a school, as a club, to support you and your campaign? We really appreciate it, and I hope for you guys that you see yourself in him. You recognize that he's gone through challenges, right? Everyone has their own challenge. Maybe you didn't go through the same experience, but I'm sure you've had challenging situations in your life. It's okay. So I hope you see that you can overcome that, right? And maybe one day you can run for election, and we'll be here supporting you and inviting you back. Okay. So how can we support you on that note?
Sure. By the way, I just want to echo what you said right now too. Challenges in life, they're actually opportunities. It's the one thing that's guaranteed, that we're all going to go through at some point in life, some level of difficulty. But the key is not to become bitter, to see them, and when you do that, you actually look back and gain a level of appreciation and thankfulness for those moments. As far as how you could get behind this campaign, like I said, I'm running a very lean organization. It's the staffers, Luam and Justin, a few of them, all volunteers. I'm not raising all kinds of money from, in fact, I'm not even emphasizing raising money. I believe in the power of people, and word of mouth is amazing. And y'all have an amazing ability to reach people, whether it's on social media, and actually the most powerful way is just having conversations in real life. So you can check out the website. It's Fikre, Fikre, number 4, VA, like Virginia.com. Go there, and then you can just spread the word. There's a week left between now and an election date. A lot could happen in a week. You could, if you're on social media, just use hashtag Fikre for VA, and just get the word out. Whatever you found to be, whether inspiring about this event, whatever message that you were able to kind of hold on to, in your own words, get the message out, and then we'll see what happens on next Tuesday.
We're rooting for you. Thank you again.